residency interview, do you really need to send an email afterwards to say thank you? Well, that's the subject of this video, and I'm Dr. Rajani Katta. I'm the author of The Successful Match, Rules to Succeed in the Residency Match, as well as the Residency Interview 101 course. And one of the things I tell all of my students is yes, the residency interview thank you emails are important. You should send them unless you're told not to. And the reason I say that is because you'll never actually know. There are some programs where it doesn't matter at all. There are other programs, however, where they take it very seriously, that you have taken the time to express some type of gratitude and interest in the program. Since you don't know which programs care about these or not, it is really important to assume that a program cares and to take the time to send that email. In general, it's also considered good manners to thank a program for taking the time to interview you and to give you the opportunity to talk about yourself and your interests and your strengths. And so that's why, in general, yes, you should consider the email to be important and you should be sending them. So the number one rule of all post-interview communication is to follow directions. So if a program has specifically stated that they do not want any communication from you, you absolutely have to follow their directions. Now, when I say post-interview communication, that might be a thank you note, it might be a thank you email, it might be what's known as a letter of intent, it might be just other types of post-interview questions. But in this particular video, I'm focusing specifically on those thank you emails. Now, there are times when you might decide to send a handwritten thank you note, but in general, thank you emails are standard and they're accepted practices. There are a few exceptions. So for example, if you are interviewing at your home program and you know exactly where the faculty mailboxes are, then you can take a handwritten note and drop it off with each faculty. But other than that, when I say a thank you letter, what I'm referring to here is a thank you email. So the number one rule is to follow directions. So if they've said they don't want any communication from you, please, please follow that. Now, what if they say that it's not required? Well, in this case, you really need to use your own judgment. So that might be a way of saying, you know, we really don't want any of that, and if you're getting that sense, then you don't have to send it. But if you get the sense that they're just saying that to be polite, like, oh, they're not, you don't have to spend your time doing that. If they're just being polite, then you can decide to go ahead and send one regardless. Really use your judgment in that case. So who do you send your post-interview thank you notes to? Well, in general, you're going to send it to each of the faculty with whom you interviewed. You're also going to send one to the program director. I also recommend sending one to the program coordinator because they have done a lot of work to try to ensure that that interview experience is a good experience for you. And so I really believe it's important to express gratitude to them as well. Now, if those are the people with whom you're going to be communicating, how do you find out their email address? Well, you're not going to ask them during an interview, and I wouldn't ever ask them directly. But instead, what you can do is reach out to the program coordinator. And what you can say is that I had a wonderful time interviewing with Dr. Katta and Dr. Desai, and I would like to send them a thank you email. Should I send that to you? And would you then be able to forward it to them, or would you recommend that I contact them directly? And then this is a polite way of leaving it up to the program coordinator. So the program coordinator will have already been given instructions, and it just varies program by program as to whether he or she will forward that on your behalf or will then send you contact info. But do not directly ask a program director or faculty member for their email. You really need to go through the program coordinator. So what do you actually say in a thank you note? Well, we have several sample thank you notes in our blog post, so you can read it if you prefer, and we're going to link to that in the video description. But in general, what I suggest starting with is you want to use formal language. So, Dear Dr. Desai, I so enjoyed my time interviewing for the Baylor College of Medicine Internal Medicine Residency program, and I really want to thank you for the opportunity. So you want to have a greeting and you want to express gratitude. Beyond that, you want to include some type of memory spark. So a memory spark is just a statement that refers back to something that you discussed in the interview. And it's used to help spark a memory for the interviewer to help them remember you. That memory spark can either be something related to, it can be something that is just a fun topic of conversation that came up. So, it can be something along the lines of, I really enjoyed talking about your favorite Tex-Mex restaurants in Houston. I love Tex-Mex and I can't wait to check out Chuy's the next time I'm in Houston. So that's an example of a fun memory spark. You can also use a more professional, interest-related memory spark. And sometimes these can be helpful because it can really solidify or make that connection in the interviewer's mind that you really fit well with the program. So Dr. Katta, I really enjoyed our conversation about translational research and speaking about your interest in inflammatory biomarkers, especially because I have such a strong interest myself in translational research, and I would love to make that a future part of my career. So that's another example of a memory spark that you can use. Pick either one. The goal is to just relate something back to that conversation that hopefully will help them remember you. Because I have to say, on the other side of the desk, after you have spoken to 15 amazing applicants over the course of a day, sometimes, unfortunately, they can start to merge into one another. It can be hard to remember distinct features or qualifications of individuals. So that's the whole goal of including a memory spark. And then you would conclude by saying, I really enjoyed my time. Thank you again. One question that I'm often asked is, should I tell the program how I plan on ranking them? And the answer is no. This is a thank you note. The letter of intent is a separate type of communication. And that's where, if you choose, you can tell your top ranked program, and some people like to also include their top 1, 2, 3 ranked programs, that you are planning on ranking them very highly. So that is a letter of intent, that is separate. In this thank you note, you do not talk about ranking. Now, there are, of course, always going to be exceptions to this rule. So for example, if you are interviewing at the very end of the season and you have already completed all of your interviews, you may choose to then say, I've completed all of my interviews for the season and I had a wonderful time, and after visiting your program, I will be ranking you at the very top of my list. But that's an exception. In general, no, you're not going to talk about ranking decisions. One question that I'm frequently asked as well is, when should I send my thank you notes? And the answer is, as soon as possible. You really want to connect it to the time of your interview because that's when it's going to be most memorable. Now, I will say that there's a wide variation in how quickly applicants are able to get these out. In dermatology, I'll tell you that most applicants were sending them within 24 hours. So basically, they were on, this is the time before Zoom, but they were on the plane and they were writing their thank you notes. Now, I think within 24 hours would be ideal because these really shouldn't take you that long. You just need to click through them. It's interesting though, in talking to Dr. Desai, who has worked with internal medicine applicants, he found that the 24-hour rule was far, far less common in internal medicine. So there's probably a wide deal of variation, but I would recommend trying to just get them done as quickly as possible. And the added bonus is then they're not hanging on top of you. You can just get them done and you can stop thinking about it. So I'd really recommend just plowing through and getting them done. So the bottom line is that residency interview thank you notes are considered standard practice, and I would recommend sending them to all of the interviewers, as well as the program director and the program coordinator. And in this, it really should be short and sweet, but you can include that memory spark. Will it make a difference to your chances of matching at that program? Probably not. At most programs, it's going to be a very, very minor factor, if at all, but it is considered good manners, and there's a chance that it can help spark that memory. Now, the one caveat is to follow all directions. If they tell you don't send one, don't send one. And if you'd like some examples, we're going to link to our blog post that has several sample residency interview thank you emails. So, as you are working on your residency interview season, I want to wish you all the best. I'm Dr. Rajani Katta, and you can see our website, The Successful Match, for more resources. Best of luck to you.